Introduce and he probably doesn't get tired of hearing this, the president of Edison State, Chris Spratt.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Paul. Good evening, everyone. It's great to see such an amazing turnout and all that we have tonight. This is really rewarding. So thank you for being a part of Edison State's celebration of Black History Month. And I do want to emphasize that word celebration. That word celebration points to, I guess in my mind, two other words. They're really the pillars of Edison State's existence. And those words are success and excellence. The central focus of Edison State Community College and our diversity committee is to celebrate the success and the excellence of students in our community. And now on the educational side, we're blessed, honestly, to play a role in that success and that excellence. And honestly, we are really thrilled tonight to present this celebration of the contributions and the success and the excellence of Black Americans and their critical role in this nation's history. So I hope you enjoy tonight's program. There's been a lot of time and effort put into it. And I just want to emphasize that it's a time to celebrate, it's a time to enjoy, and to think of that excellence and that success that our Black Americans have had. So thank you for that. Thank you for joining us tonight and being a part of Edison State's celebration. Thank you.
So many of you, as you were coming in, heard the drum circle that was outside. I want to introduce them. They're not going to formally be in here, but they will be out there later on too. It's the North Star Tribe. It's a group of percussionists who performs on drums from around the world. So if you get a chance, go out and look at all the drums, and I'm sure they will love to talk about all the different drums and where they're from. That group is led by Jason Evans, by the way. So our first performer tonight is Mr. Maurice Sadler. He holds a master's degree in theater arts, another master's degree in educational administration, and he began his career as a third grade teacher, and today is the principal of Hayward Elementary School in Troy. Tonight's dramatic monologue performed by Mr. Sadler will detail General Colin Powell's first tour in Vietnam War in 1962 through 1963. He was serving as an Army captain. Powell commanded a South Vietnamese army of around 400 men in the 1st and 2nd Infantry Divisions. So, welcome, Mr. Sadler.
I have had a great life. Mine is the story of a black kid of no early promise from an immigrant family of limited means who was raised in the South Bronx and somehow rose to be the National Security Advisor to the President of the United States and then Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. It is a story of faith, faith in myself, faith in America. Above all, it's a love story. Love of family, of friends, of the Army, and of my country. It is a story that could only happen in America. It was 1962. My images of going to war were formed by 40s newsreels and 50s movies and early 60s TV documentaries. And war was always in black and white. Well, my arrival in the Vietnam War shattered all those preconceptions. I did not cross the Pacific in a crowded troop transport. I came on World Airways, a chartered commercial flight. I did not storm down the ramp of an LCI and hit the beach in waist-high water. I checked into the Rex, a hotel in Saigon turned into bachelor officers' quarters. And I entered a world not black and white, but painted in color palette of a semi-tropical pattern. The next morning after my arrival in Vietnam, Major General Charles N. Tibbets gathered us all in a conference room and delivered a rousing pep talk. Why had we left our loved ones behind? Why had we come here to fight halfway around the world? To stop the spread of Marxism, to help the South Vietnamese save their country from a communist takeover. That was the finest thing we could do for our families, for our country, and freedom-loving people everywhere. I was fired up all over again. Well, that afternoon we were driven out to the American military side of Tan Son Nhut Airport to be issued field gear, field jungle fatigues, jungle boots, helmets, reminders of where we were headed. After a few more days of indoctrination in Saigon, I was to head north to join up with the Army of the Republic of Vietnam. I was to serve as the advisor to 400 men. The 2nd Battalion, 3rd Infantry Regiment of the 1st Division, posted in the tropical forest along the Laotian border at a place called A Shao. Now, getting to A Shao was not easy. You could either fly there in 30 hair-raising minutes or take weeks to walk in. Finally, on January 17, 1962, I boarded a Marine H-34 helicopter loaded with replacements. Bags of rice, live chickens, pigs. We plopped down onto a crude, perforated metal airstrip stamped out of the jungle. The pilot shouted for the soldiers to unload the helicopter before the Viet Cong started taking pot shots at us. Well, I jumped to the ground, looked around, and felt as if I had been propelled back in time. I stood there asking myself, what the hell am I doing here? For my training at Fort Bragg, I knew our formal role here. We were to establish a presence, a word with a nice sophisticated ring, but more specifically, we were supposed to engage the Viet Cong, to keep them from moving through the A Shao Valley and fomenting their insurgency in the populated coastal provinces. The immediate reality was the base camp at A Shao was there to protect an airstrip that was there to supply the outpost. Now, my first sensation at being among Vietnamese troops, I was towering over them and presenting a choice target. They were short and slight, and with their smooth faces, they looked like kids, though most of them were in their 20s. They seemed barely trained, but willing and obedient. What went on in their heads, I had no idea, since they were mostly conscripts who hid their feelings behind a mask of polite submission. After a couple of weeks, Captain Hayu, who was my counterpart in the Vietnamese Army, came to my hut with news that I had been waiting for. We had our orders. We were going out on Operation Grasshopper, an extended patrol down the A Shao Valley. At 3 a.m. on February 7, 1962, I threw my pack over my back, slung my M2 carbine over my shoulder, and joined Hayu for a last inspection of the battalion before we moved out. Soon, the long green line of troops was swallowed up by the dark jungle. I felt a tingling anticipation. A force of armed men moving into the unknown was a certain power, even a touch of majesty. Although the squealing pigs and quacking chickens and accompanying us in the wicker baskets distracted somewhat from the martial order. On March, I discovered the reality of a triple canopy forest. We could go all day long without seeing the sun. Sweat bathed our faces and our uniforms turned soggy. The salt from our perspiration turned gray-white semicircles under our armpits and blotches of backs on our fatigues. We constantly popped tablets just to replenish our body's salt supply. A distinctive smell of mud, dirty bodies, and rotting vegetation clung to us. We moved in clouds of insects. Worse were the leeches. The trails we followed had been sown by the Viet Cong with snares, punji, spikes, that bamboo sticks concealed in holes, the tip poison with buffalo dung that could get you at any moment. Every day was an endless obstacle course as we tried to make contact with the Viet Cong. The physical demands validated every test the Army had put me through in the Florida swamps and the Georgia mountains. For all the hardships, I was still excited to be on the trail, testing my endurance, feeling especially alive as strength and fatigue flowed alternately through my limbs. Our column stretched for nearly a mile, 400 men trying to be quiet. The non-coms constantly shushing the troops, everyone taking care not to rustle a dry twig or step on a branch, eyes darting left and right, up and down, grinding out our meager advance in eerie silence, except for the calls of the exotic birds and the chatter of the monkeys. Then at nightfall, when we made camp, all hell broke loose. The Vietnamese lit campfires, the flames rising and smoke billowing high into the air, the animals screeching, and they were slaughtered for the evening meal. Then men sat around the fire, mess kits clattering, talking freely as they ate. It was futile to try to keep them quiet. The noise, the fire, and smoke must have announced our presence for miles around. Now in the morning, we would return to the trails, shushing each other again, making our silent way. It happened on the 6th day as we were coming down the steep hillside. I had just arrived at the bottom of a narrow creek bed when I heard several sharp cracks. Incoming fire, the first I had ever experienced. I heard a scream up ahead. When I got to the head of the column, I saw a knot of Vietnamese huddled around a groaning soldier. Another small figure lay in the creek in a fetal position. His head was turned sideways, and the creek flowed across his face. The man was dead. He had been ambushed. The whole cycle, silence, shots, confusion, death, and silence again, was over in a short couple of minutes. As night fell, we camped on high ground where we could be less vulnerable to attack than down in the valley. I threw down my pack, my carbine, my helmet damp with cold sweat, and slumped to the ground. I felt drained. The lark was over. The exhilaration of a cocky 25-year-old American had evaporated in a single bush of gunfire. Somebody was liable to get killed. Tomorrow, and the day after tomorrow, and the next day after tomorrow. This was not war movies on Saturday afternoon. It was real. It was dangerous. It was ugly. I needed to steel myself to get through tomorrow and all the other tomorrows until they added up to a year. I was crippled by a terrible loneliness made all the more acute because I could not share my fears. I was the senior American advisor, you see, the one the others looked up to for strength and the guidance. Those lines from Fort Benning came back to me, content to fill a soldier's grave for reasons I will never know. Yet I wanted to know why. And then I fell into a fitful sleep. I woke up with the sun splashing across my face, feeling oddly invigorated. Someone was dead, but not me. A sense of elation. I tried to blend in with the Vietnamese soldiers. I wore the same uniform, carried the same pack. I pinned my captain's barge onto the front of my blouse, concealed my gear, and for once, my color provided an advantage. I was color coordinated with the Vietnamese, and by slouching, I became virtually indistinguishable from the Vietnamese. Because what the Viet Cong were really looking for was a white hide. Now, on February 18, 1962, when we came upon a deserted Montagnard village, except for an old woman too feeble to move, we burned down the thatched huts, starting the blaze with Ronson and Zippo's cigarette lighters. But why were we torching houses and destroying crops? In the hard logic of war, what difference did it make if you shot your enemy or starved him? As a young officer, I had been conditioned to just believe in the wisdom of my superiors and to simply obey. On February 24th, we took casualties. And the following day, we radioed the base camp to evacuate our dead and wounded. We loaded the casualties and signaled the pilot to take off. A young Marine was crouched in the doorway behind an M60 machine gun. He assumed he had spotted Viet Cong and started blazing away, shooting at my men. I headed toward the commotion. A soldier was hunched on the ground holding his right hand, which hung from a scrap of flesh where a bullet had torn away his wrist. 2 other men lay dead, and the Vietnamese looked at me, hurt, shocked. Why you do this? A non-com asked. Why you shoot us? I had no answer, other than war settled. Terrible things happened. This bloody blunder had undermined their faith in me and America. We were ambushed almost daily, usually in the morning. I tried repeatedly to get Captain Hayu to have at least the men on point wear armored vests. Now, the Vietnamese were small, and the vests were big, heavy, and uncomfortable. Still, I kept badgering him and badgering him. The next time we were standing over one of the men writhing in agony, I finally persuaded him. When we had been out for nearly 2 months, I had seen men hurt, I had seen men die, but I had yet to see the enemy. The greatest shame for Captain Hayu was to lose his America. I found it maddening to be ambushed, to lose men day after day after day to this phantom enemy who hit and ran, hit again, never giving us anything to shoot at. I often wondered if we were achieving anything. How did we measure progress? There was no front, there was no ground gained or lost, just endless, bloody sogging along the trail leading to nowhere. Toward the end of March, our mission changed. We were to build a new base camp at a place called Guillemont. By now, Captain Hayu and I got along extremely well. As soon as he learned I was not an American, no one. We never talked about the politics of the war, we talked about our families. I had crossed the cultural divide. I was no longer excess baggage to be pampered and protected. I was accepted by him and his troops. Unfortunately, soon after the base camp was finished, Captain Liu got new orders, and I felt the loss of him deeply. However rough the routine, I never felt physically better in my life. I looked gaunt, but was in superb condition. I had lost 25 pounds of German beer blubber and 4 Devon's cheeseburgers, and in time I had become quite fond of rice dishes. My wife Alma wrote letters, and what she didn't tell me in her letters, thinking that I had enough trouble, was that the race situation back home had gotten worse. Birmingham had been designated the worst big city in the United States. The honor was not bestowed lightly. While I was in Vietnam, there occurred the 18th bombing of black neighborhoods in Birmingham. Birmingham, as the blacks call it. While I was fighting the Viet Cong, a young Baptist minister, Dr. Martin Luther King, had been arrested for leading a protest. While I was patrolling the A Shaw Valley for Communist RC, my father-in-law sat up nights, shotgun across his lap, ready to defend his home against fellow Americans of a different color. My journal entry for May 18, 1962 is significant. For once, our point squad spotted the Viet Cong before they spotted us. For once, we did the ambushing. One man lay motionless on the ground, the first dead Viet Cong that I could definitely confirm we had killed. He lay on his back, gazing up at us with sightless eyes. The man was slightly built, had coarse nut brown features, and wore flimsy black short leg outfits we call pajamas. My gaze fixed on his feet. He was wearing sandals cut from an old tire, a strip of the sidewall serving as the thong. There was our fearsome, unseen enemy. I felt nothing. Certainly not sympathy. I had seen too much death and suffering on our own side to care anything about what happened on theirs. Then there was July 23rd, 1962. 6 months in the boonies, and at last the battalion was getting a break, going to a special forces camp for a rest. We were marching late one morning along a creek bed, and then suddenly, my feet, my right leg went out from under me, and I felt a sharp sting, and I yanked my foot out of the hole about a foot deep. I had stepped into a fungi trap, and the spike had pierced through my boot and into my foot. I cursed my stupidity and continued limping toward the camp, still a couple of hours away. If anything, I felt more embarrassed than pain and did not want to let the Vietnamese know what had happened. I had not gone for more than 20 minutes. However, when the pain became excruciating, I found a branch to use as a crutch and kept moving. In camp, the American medic took one look at the wound and called for a helicopter. The spike had passed through the sole of my boot and through the top of my instep, and my foot was hugely swollen, and it turned purple as the poison from the dung began to spread. At a dispensary, the doctor shoved iodoform gauze into the bottom of the wound and pulled it through the top and then ran it back through, back and forth, like a shoe shop. I was sure I was going to faint. The doctor then pumped my body full of antibiotics. I recovered quickly, but my days as a field advisor were over. In the 7 months that I had served, I was the unit's 34th casualty, 7 killed and 27 wounded. Now, it would be dishonest to say I hated to leave combat. Hardship and death are easily abandoned companions. Out of action, I was reassigned as an assistant advisor on the operations staff, and additionally as commander of the Blue Citadel Airfield. This new vantage point was not comforting. The foot soldiers were brave and uncomplaining, but incompetent. Corruption and flashy uniforms seemed to increase in direct ratio to rank. After dealing with intelligence wizards and puffed up pilots, I began developing a rule. Don't be buffaloed by experts and elites. Experts often have more data than judgment. Secretary McNamara had made a visit to South Vietnam and had concluded after just 48 hours there that we were winning the war. Yet nothing I had witnessed in the A Shaw Valley indicated we were beating the Viet Cong. Beating them, well, most of the time we couldn't even find them. The Army's attitude seemed to be, don't question those who know better. And if it ain't working, pretend that it is, and maybe it will fix itself. On November 1st, 1962, I was back in Saigon, my tour over. I had to be processed out and would soon be headed home. In spite of my misgivings, I was still leaving the country a true believer. I experienced disappointment, not disillusion. I remained convinced that it was right to help South Vietnam remain independent. The mission was simply bigger than we had anticipated. I had said earlier, it'll take 500,000 men to succeed in this mission. On November 22nd, 1962, I was sitting in the airport in Nashville, Tennessee, waiting for an afternoon flight to Birmingham, when I noticed people clustered around a TV set in the lounge, staring in a strange silence. 3 weeks before, I had been in Vietnam on the day that country's president had been assassinated and the government overturned. And this afternoon, the president of my country had been murdered. And while I had been off fighting for the freedom of foreigners, 4 little black girls had been killed by a bomb planted in Birmingham's 16th Street Baptist Church. I had returned home from Vietnam, it seemed, to a world that had been turned upside down.
Good evening. We're glad to be here. Chris Brown. I have Cameron Voorhees to my right, Lee Brookshire on bass, and John Parcell on drums. We're going to take you on a musical journey through really a number of different areas. We're going to start with one of Dayton's own legendary composers, the sidekick of the great Duke Ellington. This is Billy Strayhorn's song, Take the A Train. As many of you know, jazz is really unique music in world history. It has influenced music all over the world. If you hear Latin music, whatever it has been influenced by jazz. And it's a very amazing music, African American started music that has transcended anything you hear today. And we're going to kind of take you back to really the gospel era or spiritual era, and this is Just a Closer Walk with Thee. We're going to do something that was a little styled. This is a bossa nova. So bossa nova is from Brazil, and a lot of the musicians would be inspired in New York and would take back jazz to their countries. And this is one of those very distinct styles. You may have heard it in the Olympics a number of years ago when it was in Brazil. This is a bossa nova written by a trumpet player named Kenny Dorham, who was on the album of the legendary saxophonist Joe Henderson from Lima, Ohio. Just kidding. Lima, Ohio. Lima, Ohio. So this is Joe. This is from page 1, his album, and this is Blue Bossa. here today. So, we're going to do another song that we debuted last year at the North Star Coffee Station, which will be there again this coming weekend here. And this is written this for Mr. Larry Hamilton here. This is Ownership Identity. So, glad to play this for you.
Let's just not cut it with a stand-up bass and a good trumpet.
would like to now introduce our next entertainment. This is going to be a series of poems and stories presented by students that are in, or were in, Dr. Vivian Bloodham's creative writing class. So they're going to read.
Good evening. I'm Anita Snyder, or rather Anita Patel Snyder. We at Edison State Community College embrace diversity and inclusion in terms of age, class, race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, religion, no religion, able-bodied, differently abled, size, and gender. The creative writing presented tonight was written by students in creative writing classes here at Edison. Our readers are Appalachian, African American, and Indian American. The words we read are explorations of topics we ask ourselves as we consider what it is to be an American. Hostility toward an African American male who is defined in part by his identity as a homosexual. The murdering of African Americans by law enforcement. The conflict in American experiences who has deep roots in another country. And we all join our readers tonight in asking ourselves questions such as the following. Who am I? How does my past inform who I am today? We ponder these questions as we navigate our lives. Please join us on our journey.
I am reading this for my brother and for all my brothers and sisters that have went through sexual diversities and have been mistreated. Love must be dead. Love must be dead. That was all I could think, lying on the concrete with my drying blood. My bruised ribs sobbed the sentiment back at me, harmonizing with the scrapes on my arms and the voice in my head that screamed and screamed and screamed. Love is dead. Love is dead. Love is dead. It was all too much to stand at the time. And so I lay, letting my blood dry and my bruises ache. My cuts sting and my mind scream. Love is dead. This was not my first conclusion I had drawn about love. No. My journey has been a long journey with love. A path to understanding that has only led me to what surely must be my final conclusion. The first conclusion I drew about love came before I could even understand what love was. Before I could even remember. Before I could know how to do anything else but reciprocate. A rocking crib, gentle whispers from the bundle of my curly hair and smiling lips that lulled me into sleep. Tying shoelaces and zipping up jackets, fluffing out my hair before a photo day at school, straightening my shirt collar before church, plastering a bandage on scraped knees. A love so pure and natural, it had helped me make a bridge into life I can't even remember building. My first conclusion on love was instinctual. Love is a foundation. The second conclusion I drew on love was late middle school. Entering late middle school was like entering hell. But if hell was a junior high gym badly decorated with streamers and a banner that read spring formal. Everyone was dating everyone, and everyone else was breaking up with everyone. And oh my God, did you hear that Julia dumped Camden and started dating Nathan immediately after? Except for me. My third conclusion was that I must be missing something. As all my friends found girls to hold hands with on the bleachers and take to the movies. I wondered what I was missing. As I gazed into the mirror and saw the acne scars, my dark skin and my untamed hair, I wondered what I was missing. As I kissed Mary McCarthy after a basketball game, in the parking lot, watching her blush and stutter and scurry into my mom's minivan, I wondered what I was missing. And as I brushed James Thompson's hand in ELA, and he smiled down at me and asked me if I'd like to go to case with him, I wondered and I realized what I was missing. My fourth conclusion as he kissed me in the booth of a 50s style diner, was that what I was actually missing? 2 years later, another boy dumped me in that same booth. And I came to my fifth conclusion. Love was stupid. And I would never love anyone again. And after 2 more years, when I had been too broken to continue the desperate scramble for love that had existed before, I came to understand that love was elsewhere. I fled to college and surrounded myself with the protection of friendship, hoping that he would see I was just fine without him. And thanks. And found that I actually quite like the people that I made a shield of. I love Thomas Smile and Ellie's dogs, and board game nights and karaoke and study parties that dissolved into video games. And I love none of it like how I loved any boyfriend. But here I was, undeniably and unashamedly, before me. Love. My sixth conclusion was that I would always love people. But it didn't need to be in a specific way. There was an infinite number of love. My seventh conclusion, as I listened to my mom sob on the other end of the phone line, listen to the prayers and the begging and the denial. Listen to the silence of a disconnected phone. Was that love conditional? As I watched her casket be swallowed into the earth, a few months later, our conversation and her conversation therapy pamphlets still fresh in my mind. My eighth conclusion was that love was a lying bitch. Because how could it be anything other than constant and unerasable if losing her would still hurt so deeply? My ninth conclusion was love was often just a mask for hate. My tears gathered on my boyfriend's phone screen, sliding all the way down text he had changed with his ex-girlfriend. The text where he called her beautiful and sexy and funny and wonderful. And all the adjectives he never gave me. The text where he only called me ugly and loud and black. And far, far too many word slurs. The text where I realized I'd given him too much faith in too many ways. My conclusion swung in my head, spelled out with every letter of every word sent to her, clearly in my conscience as I tripped down the stairs and promptly vomited on the curb. So my sub-conclusion was that I should never love a white man for Arkansas. And I figured that number 9 went hand in hand with number 10. As I entered the cold, brisk night and found myself face to face with a large, white, pagoda wall, I wondered if my time to make conclusions was numbered. It didn't matter that I had brought pepper spray or that I had made sure my phone was charged before I left that night. It didn't matter that I wasn't even going home with anyone that night because my heart was still broken. It didn't matter because they saw the gay bar I had walked out of and the dark skin that covered my bones and decided that I just wouldn't do it. And wasn't that the morbid irony of everything? Wasn't that the great kicker? The final punchline to the never-ending joke that had been the life I had been handed? Maybe that was love. Never in your control, never your decision, never fucking enough. So I let them drag me by my curly hair and toss me to the pavement. I let them kick me with their white lighter lace dots and let their rolled up chinos get bloody and let myself give up. And by the end, I nearly was laughing at the abject horror of it all. It was all a bit too much. They left me there. My mind empty of everything but my final conclusion. My search for conclusions is dead. My relationship is dead, and my mom is dead. Love must be dead. I lay on the concrete, just me and my drying blood. My bruised ribs ache and my cut stung and my mind screamed. And I just let it all be. There was nothing left for me but to be. I would figure out who to be later. Because I knew, despite it all, there would always be a later. This would never be my final conclusion. In a few minutes, I conclude that I needed to get home to my roommate, who loved me enough that she would worry for me soon. I knew in a few months I'd be sitting in a coffee shop or a music bar or an office to conclude that the man over there was the fittest I'd ever seen. And pay for his drink or sit next to him or strike up a conversation on the boundless thrills of accounting and conclude that he was the one. In a few years, I conclude that I'd take him in sickness and in health until death did us part, to the ringing of church bells. And in a few more, I conclude that love was forgiveness of my mother's grave. In a decade, I conclude that fatherhood was love, and that love makes a child more yours than your own blood. And I conclude a million more things about love in a fraction of the time. I conclude that love was hate and hate was love. And everything was ugly and beautiful and evil and good. I conclude so much I lose count. If I were willingly reach a final conclusion, it would be the only true encompassing explanation. The reason why love is a foundation and wanted and stupid and hateful and a bitch. The reason why love is a million contradictions wrapped up into a heart-shaped ball and placed, bleeding, pumping into our chest. I conclude that love is living. But for now, I conclude nothing. I understand nothing. I simply lie with my dry blood. I lie with my soft, aching ribs and my stinging cuts and my screaming mama. I'll lie and I'll just be.
I run and I play. I'm pretending to be a police officer. Well, Mom says I'm a good kid. I used to play with Legos, but I'm kind of outgrowing them. I mean, I'll be a teenager soon. I like to play video games now. Bang! 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 My friend let me use his toy gun. Well, I mean, I live with my mom and my sister. I don't see my dad very much, so Mom says I'm becoming the man of the house. But I still like to play every now and then. Bang! 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 I'll fall to the ground. This hurts! Mama! This hurts! Why am I bleeding? Mom! Where's my mom? It was just a toy. Why did this happen? I'm just a boy.
The poem that Dustin just read was written to give voice to Tamir Rice, a 12-year-old black child shot and killed by a police officer outside a Cleveland, Ohio rec center on November 22nd, 2014. At the time, Tamir was playing with a toy pellet gun. I wrote this poem and the others that I'm reading tonight as a class project here at Edison, but now it's become more than that for me. When I speak on behalf of these victims, I want to not only get the facts straight about their murder, but I want to know their story, who they were as a person, what they must have been feeling. These were people, not just numbers or the latest news story. I cried when I research, write, and read my poetry. It touches me deeply to have the honor of giving these victims a voice. Ultimately, I'm a white woman who will never know what it's like to be black in America. I had to let go of what I thought I knew and open my mind to learning the truth. I hope my poetry encourages people to open their minds and hearts and look at things differently too. We must speak for these victims who can no longer speak for themselves. We must give them a voice. Stephon Clark was a 22-year-old black man who was shot and killed by police officers as he stood in his grandparents' backyard holding a cell phone on March 18, 2018. Stephon was unarmed. 4 and 20. 4 seconds. My life amounted to 4 seconds. 4 seconds of warning, 4 seconds of consideration, 4 seconds to decide to kill me for talking on my phone in my grandparents' backyard. Is that a crime? It is for a 22-year-old black man. The sentence, 20 shots. What will happen to my 2 sons? Will they get a better chance in life? Will they get more than 4 seconds for someone to decide their fate? For someone to decide they are worthy of living? I want a better world for my sons, a just world. A world where being black doesn't mean being less. A world where their color is celebrated, not judged. Being a black man in America means your right to exist is not protected, even if you're just living your life. Even if you're just talking on your cell phone in your grandparents' backyard. Breonna Taylor was a 26-year-old black woman who was shot to death on March 13, 2020 by police in her Louisville, Kentucky home as they attempted to serve a no-knock warrant. Breonna was unarmed. Say my name. I have a name. My name is Breonna Taylor. Do you see me? Do you know me? I have a voice. Do you hear me? You see me and you see my bad choices. I chose to love. I loved the wrong man. My mama loved the wrong man. I was made from bad choices. Do not judge me by my past mistakes, and I will give you the same grace. You've written a narrative for my life. I'm not a narrative. I am real. I am a black woman. I am not a statistic. I made a difference. I mattered. I had goals for my life. I worked to save people. Who was there to save me? No one. I was left on the floor to die. No one came to help me. Did you knock before you entered my life? Before you ended my life? In the past, I have let people in that changed my life, some not for better. I had trouble closing the door to shut them back out. Was I allowed to have choices? I tried to make better choices. I was trying to build up boundaries and build my life for better. I did not give you my permission. I did not tell you to come in. I did not invite you into my life. I did not invite you to end my life. Now my door is closed forever. You can knock and knock and knock again, but I will not answer. The voice is yours now. Use it for me. Give me a voice. I have a name. My name is Breonna Taylor. George Floyd was a 46-year-old black man who died as a result of a police officer keeping a knee on his neck while handcuffed during an arrest outside of a shop in Minneapolis, Minnesota on May 25th, 2020. George was being arrested for passing a $20 counterfeit bill. I didn't know. I didn't know I would be someone's hero, that I would make an impact. I didn't know that my not mattering to some would make me matter to many. I didn't know that my name would be known across the nation and my face painted on brick walls. I didn't know that my last words would become a battle cry for justice for people like me. I didn't know that I would change people's hearts, people who don't have the same skin color as me. I didn't know that I would be remembered more for my death than for my life.
Amita Patel. What is she? It's 1980 something, and I'm not white. I have a funny name. When my dad comes to school events, his skin is too dark, and he talks with an accent. But my mom is white as you can be, with bright red hair. And even though my skin burns easily in the sun just like her, and I sound like her, and I don't know any Gujarati, and I don't like Indian food, I'm still not quite white. It's 1980 something, and I'm not Indian. I have the name, it's true, but I don't know what they're saying, and I don't know how to do this dance, and I'm not sure how to wear this babu. I don't want to eat anything here. When my mom comes to Indian events, everyone stares seeing her in a sari, and they know she and I are not Indian. And even though I can't express it at this age, it occurs to me that being two halves does not make one whole. It's 1990 something. I'm at a big city college, and I realize there's 3 of me. 3 Amita Patels, I mean. Turns out my name is the Amy Smith of South Asia. On paper, Amita Patel is Indian, but I'm a fraud, and everybody knows it, especially the other Amita Patels. It's 1990 something. I'm a young adult meeting new people. What are you? They ask. What do you think I am? I ask back. Greek, Jewish, Hispanic, Muslim, American Indian. Well, American Indian. Almost. I know that no matter what I say, they'll expect something from me. A show, a different language. They'll ask me about India. But I've never been to India. I know about as much as they do. And that's kind of embarrassing for somebody named Amita Patel. And it occurs to me that I'd really just like to say, I'm American, straight from your melting pot. It's the early 2000s. I'm a real adult now, but still sometimes feel like 1980-something Amita. I go to family weddings with hundreds of people, feeling completely insecure. Am I wearing the right thing, the right way? I buy a beautiful sari, but it's 6 yards long, and who's gonna dress me? I did not attempt that tonight. And the wedding festivities are 4 days long, 4 long days to wonder if I'm doing any of it right. And it occurs to me that it would actually be easier for me to be white at an Indian wedding. There are no expectations for white people at an Indian wedding. But Patels, they should know something. It's the early 2000s, applying for jobs, graduate school, and other adult-like things, and there are the boxes. You know the ones, check mark all that apply. And I feel funny checking white and guilty checking Asian, because I'm not what people think of when you say Asian. In fact, my dad's ancestry from Gujarat is actually Caucasian, just like my mom. And it occurs to me that these boxes actually feel like cages, and I want to be free of them. It's present day. I'm a wife, I'm a sister, I'm a friend, I'm a mother of 5 children, some very white and one with bright red hair, and some olive-skinned and ambiguous like me. I'm a teacher, I'm a writer, I'm an artist, I'm a student, and I wouldn't hesitate to checkmark any of those boxes. And it occurs to me that I should freely embrace all the things I am, because nobody is ever just one thing. It's present day, and I think of my kids. Half Patel. Is it dishonest to look so white and mark Asian Indian? Because now we're more specific with the boxes. Or are they being dishonest to themselves if they don't mark it? Because here's the thing. My brother's very white children don't have to prove anything. They're good on paper. They got the Patel last name. And it occurs to me that doesn't seem fair. And it takes me back. It's 1980 something, and I'm not a boy, which means I'm less than. But I'll save the rest of that for the big Women's History Month event next month.
It is now my proud pleasure to introduce Marva Archibald, Assistant Professor of Business and Chair of the Edison State Community College Diversity Committee.
Thank you, Dr. Hines. Good evening, everyone. I hope you've had an opportunity to look across the room and see the diversity within our midst. People are here of different age, gender, culture, religion, sexual orientation, and the list is endless. Give yourself a round of applause for being with us. I did not use my role as professor to give you some instructions this evening. So first and foremost, in your program, you will find an evaluation form. Dr. Bilczynski is the dean who collects the data, and she let me know that I need to make sure every attendant complete an evaluation form. So before you leave, please go ahead and take them out of your programs. And in fact, we have some additional programs here. So if you don't have one, I'd be willing to get this to you. Please go ahead and fill out the evaluation form and leave it on your desk. All right, we will gather them. We have a diversity meeting tomorrow evening, and we will be going over the feedback that you've shared with us. We want your honest opinion. This is how we improve. Your input, your ideas, your suggestions, your feedback is what we will discuss in our diversity meeting tomorrow for events coming up in the future. So please take a moment to do that. All right? Moving on. I would like for you to share with me, join with me in a moment of silence. We lost one of our dearest faculty member in the fall of last year. I bring it to you because Vince Miller was one of the stalwarts of the diversity committee. He was an at-large member, and for those of you who don't know what at-large member means, he really wasn't on the diversity committee because we are 23 Army strong. But in his role as Edison faculty, he gave us ideas, comments, shared with us, and he invited several people to his Gen 101 classroom, me included, to talk to his students about diversity. And this is where I get to address the students. This is Gen 101. It's one of the classes that our students must take, among others, to move on to the remainder of their courses here at Edison. And so when I go and I talk to them, when I leave and I get the feedback, Vince says, we want you on the schedule next semester. So he was wonderful. He left a lot of great memories with us. To his family, beyond my voice, we just want you to know how much we appreciate all the work, all the effort that Vince gave to Edison State Community College. So I'm going to ask you to join me in a moment of bowing your heads and let's respect Vince for what he has been to Edison State. Please. All right, thank you so much. Next, I want to extend my deepest gratitude on behalf of the entire Diversity Committee to Dr. Doreen Larson, our former president, who is now retired and have gone on to do other things. And in our midst, we have President Spradlin, who's taken over from Dr. Doreen Larson. When she came to Edison 7.5, 8 years ago, she immediately joined the Diversity Committee. I must let you know, we did have a Diversity Committee prior to her coming to Edison. But boy, she took us under her wings. She molded us. She shaped us. She gave us ideas. She gave us suggestions. She reviewed every one of my agenda before a diversity meeting. That was the type of president or leader that she was. Unfortunately, she could not join us this evening, but I did not want to end the night without saying thank you to her unwavering support of the entire Diversity Committee and all of the Edison family. So let's go ahead and give her a round of applause for all of you. Thank you. Next, I want to give some thank you shout outs to some people that have been so instrumental in this evening. Jason Evans and Company, he was a gentleman outside on the drums, and if you love the drums, you had a good time. And if you had a chance to tap on the drums, you had a good time as well. And as you know, in the African American culture, it's the drums that awaken the souls. And as soon as you hear the drums, you are immediately drawn to it. And when Jason asked me, could he perform for us, of course on our committee, we have to vote on everything, right? So we voted on it and it was, yes, we're going to do this. So to Jason Company and Larry Hamilton for helping us to make this happen, we thank you very much. Next on the program then are our dancers, DC-DC2. Of course, we couldn't afford DC-DC1, but look what we got this year. Look what we got this year. We're a state college and we have to work within our budgets. So that's what we did. We worked hard, and I think we got a great performance. Next is Chris Braun to my left. Chris teaches jazz here now at Edison. So whenever we can tap into the talent that we have here on campus, we're going to use it. So to Chris and company, we thank you for the jazz performance. Next on the list is Principal Maurice Sadler. He is the principal of Haywood Elementary School in Troy, right down the road from me. So there was no way we were going to let him escape. So Vivian called me up and says, what do you think? I go, I think we can use him, but I need to check with the diversity committee. So we discussed it again. I think he did a great performance today. Mr. Loudmilk, William is in the back of the room, and he's going to play the song that we're going to sing together. We call it the congregational song. William has been a force for me, a mentor to me here at Edison. In fact, I have to tell you something. William, Vivian, Gail Ahmed, and the late Kathy Clifton were the people who were instrumental in talking me into taking over the diversity committee. So William, we thank you. Just want to make sure. On the back of your program, you will see that the entire diversity committee is listed. President Spradlin and the members of the diversity committee, if you will rise to your feet, we want to give you a shout out for supporting the diversity committee and for President Spradlin for giving us the green flag to carry on for Dr. Larson. Army strong, and everyone could not be here tonight, but for those that are here, we do appreciate you and we salute you. Thank you very much. But we do not want to go without thanking the other folks who made this program happen tonight. I want to thank all of the videographers from Pickle High School, SET, the maintenance department here at Edison, lighting and sound, Tony Spencer from IT, printing from Megan Cotterman in our copy center, promotion and photography, the marketing department, Andrea Francis, who's not able to be here tonight, for doing the flyers, the program, putting up with me, changing everything every few seconds. I've got a little OC in me, just a little, but yes. And then to Jessica Hill, who reviewed my press release, and of course, Dr. Rick Hayes back there who reviewed it, as do Vivian who reviewed it so that it would look very professional and not only represent Martha, but represent Edison State Community College. Last one, Don Walters, he's our caterer, ABI. Whenever he wants something authentic, he said, I'll get it for you. And I said, I need to see the menu. Remember, I just told you I had a little OCD in me. So I wanted to make sure that all my guests would be fed well, and that you would enjoy the refreshment tonight. I think we should give that. And last but not least, Dr. Vivian Blevins. I know she doesn't like this, but I'm old enough to know now, and I think Mrs. Stafford will agree with me, that you should give someone their flowers while they are alive. Let them take a moment to smell the roses. So Dr. Vivian Blevins, if you would stroll up here to the front, the diversity committee has something for you. And I know you don't want anything, so this is a surprise to you. She's our playwright. She's our director. She tells us what she's been great. Whether we like it or not, she keeps it great. And she has been rubbing our money. On behalf of the Edison State Diversity Committee, we want to extend our greatest gratitude to you. We want you to take a moment to smell the roses. And I don't know, there's roses in there, there's tulips and Easter in there. But nonetheless, we thank you so much for your great job.
why I do what I do. I believe in the importance of inclusion. Thank you.
And one way to host a program of such magnitude is to rely on our corporate sponsors. So Dr. Rick Hainston in the back helped me to write the grant proposal, or he reviewed the proposals. And so we want to thank the Edison State Foundation for awarding us several grants to be able to do this. So thank you, Edison State Foundation. To Park National Bank of Chickasaw, we thank you for your support. And to U.S. Bank of Troy, we thank you for your support. And to all of you for coming up and sharing with us. And all the folks I know here who've known me since 1981, and my college friends for coming up, and Abigail, and everyone. We thank you so much for coming out, and we look forward to hosting you next year, same place, same time. God be with you. Upcoming events. Again, it's the instructor in me. So in order to keep my guests included in everything we do and engaging, I went ahead and put on the board for you upcoming events. Now, we don't have all the details worked out. We're meeting, we meet every month, the diversity committee meets every month. But what we will do, we make sure to include the Edison Diversity web page for you. So keep your eyes on the web page to see what's coming up. We've got events, seminars, and webinars coming up in March. We've got a number of things they're working on, the subcommittees are working on for April, for May, and there's 2 different things going on in May, so plenty of activities on campus. And also June, we've got Juneteenth on the schedule. If you see something up there and you have any questions, by all means send me an email, I will respond to it. And if you don't see something out there that you thought we should include on there, believe me when I tell you, we're working on it. All right? Thank you. So the diversity page is listed, and also whenever we host any event, you will see more information on social media. So keep your eyes out for all that's to come from Edison State. All right, so thank you all very, very much. And the last thing before you go, if you would rise to your feet with me, we would like to sing a congregational song. Now, you're not going to lose any points. It's not mandatory. I'm not going to report you to your instructor. We just want to do this together. You can hold hands if you'd like. You can cross arms if you would like, or you can just stand there and join with us. Now, I'm not a great singer. I can make a lot of noise, but it will not come out well. So I'm going to turn it over to one of our diversity committee members, Mr. William Loudermill, on the piano to take us